Welcome to the Startup Defense. Today I have Chad Green. Chad, before we dive into what you're working on right now, and I want to kind of discover with our audience what that is, because you're always working on something interesting. And we met years ago working on machine learning and some safety projects. And then it's every time that I meet you, you're doing something different, but innovative and really interesting. So I appreciate your time coming on the show because I know you're super busy. But can you tell the audience who you are, what you're passionate about, how you show up in the world?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Kelly. It's been a while, but yeah, I remember when we first met and I was working on machine learning for power tool safety at the time. But yeah, I have a background in electrical engineering and physics, and I worked for the Department of Defense for about 12 years. My role there was typically in optical sensors, custom optical sensors and target recognition and classification. So computer vision and algorithms all mixed in with electronics and optics and sensors. And I just love that whole world of taking the physical world and designing something to sense it and make decisions off of it. It's always been a passion of mine. So I started Lantern in 2017 and with a couple partners, one of them had a big YouTube channel and we published some videos on that channel and got some attention on some products that we were working on. And we started out just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks as far as ideas. And a couple of them stuck. So we kept running with those. But we're basically an R&D house and we do contract development on new products that other people come up with or our own IP that we've come up with and just try to add value where we can.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a little bit of the world that I live in is kind of being a geek for hire, and it lets me play with a lot of technology. Paid problem solver sounds a little bit too fancy for me, but paid geek, geek for hire, geek on tap. Really, it's self-serving because I like to explore those paths, and you really never know what's going to stick or resonate with you, what's going to happen next year in the market. And getting involved in all these projects, you get to see a lot of really what the general public might see in a couple of years. And I've always found that really fun.
Yeah. And sometimes I think I get judged for being involved with too many things. You said every time you talk to me, working on something different. And some, especially the business side, would be like, oh, he's got inventor syndrome and we're going to finish a product. But it's not true. You can finish multiple products at the same time. And I think keeping that appetite for being curious and exploring outside of your typical sandbox is healthy. And it gives you a perspective on the world that maybe other people don't have so that you can be innovative. And when the opportunity comes up for something that's truly innovative, you can slide right in and go.
That's interesting. I think as an innovator, it puts you in the seat of becoming an ultimate generalist. You learn in detail about specific things, but you see such a broad perspective that solving problems in real life, solving problems in a deep medical space or the defense space, it becomes more accessible just because of the breadth of things that you see versus going deep on one particular topic. Oh, I know everything about embedded systems. You know everything about what that has to offer today or a year ago, but you really don't know about this completely different market that's completely unrelated, but has already solved that problem years and years ago. And a little bit of that inventor's syndrome can go a long way to actually making change, right?
I hope so. And I think what's been said to me is as long as I'm comfortable handing the product off at a certain point and not holding it until it's perfect, it seems like that's okay. Like I love inventing. I love coming up with new ideas, but I'm not the type that will just invent something, set it on the shelf, then go invent something else. I like to invent it, develop it to the point that somebody else can take it and productize it and make it really impactful. So I like to be a launch pad and jumpstart projects and get them going.
Where's your focus right now?
I actually have three major projects going on right now. We have two companies, Lantern Medical and Lantern Vision Systems. And Lantern Medical is working on a new medical device. As I can't go into detail, it's related to the areas of the cardiovascular system, ventilating patients, but in special circumstances in special ways. And so we've been working on that for 4 years. And the medical device barrier to entry is just enormous. And
Unbelievable.
we've been climbing over that hill, getting through biocompatibility studies and user studies and well, safety and EMC and all that stuff. That was all after the prototyping was done. So that's most of my time during the day. But at the same time, I also support a company called OmniAlert. I actually serve as the director of AI for them. And that's one of those projects that me and my partners launched at the beginning, made a video, got some exposure on it, and then packaged it up and gave it to a company that can really do something with it and make it be impactful. Can I give you a little background and detail on that?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great project. I want you to share about Omnilert.
So it's a neural network that I've trained to detect handguns. So back in 2014, my cousin's daughter was killed in the Newtown, Connecticut shooting. And at the time, I was working for the Department of Defense, and we were detecting rocket propelled grenades and trying to blow those out of the air before they hit the armored vehicle or whatever. And I felt like, man, if we can come up with algorithms that can detect these things so fast and be reactive and proactive, I actually and actively defend these from these situations and scenarios, how can we help stop these things that are happening right here to our kids in elementary schools? I came up with the idea of detecting handguns way back then, but I didn't get a chance to really implement it until I started the company in 2017. Just shortly after I started the company, I put together a classifier. I made an app on my iPhone with the trained neural network so that I could identify handguns from my iPhone, which wasn't very useful. But then we made a YouTube video, and if you go Google gun detector on YouTube, Destin Sandlin's Smarter Everyday channel has the video there. And we got 2 million views, and it stirred up this idea that maybe there's something we can do to be proactive, something that we can do to keep an eye on the situation. So OmniAlert obviously saw that video, and they're a company that builds emergency notification systems. And they've been doing it since the Virginia Tech shooting. So they'll send text messages and push notifications to whoever needs them, whoever's in the area for weather, earthquakes, and now active shooters. So they acquired the intellectual property for the gun detector and hired me as the director of AI. And I've been working with them for over 3 years now. And we've got the product out in the field. It's running, it's working. We've detected real events and I believe saved lives, definitely de-escalated some scenarios because we have an image and a video when a handgun is detected, not just a message, but the responders can see the context of the situation. So as an example, there was a group of kids playing in the stairwell, and it looked like he was filming a TikTok video. He set up his phone, and then he was kind of showing off his gun. We detected that, and instead of sending in the SWAT team that's outfitted with battle gear, they're able to send a social worker or somebody to say, yeah, it's not a great idea.
A great idea to play with guns in a stairwell. This is very important because one of my core principles, my modes of thought is that innovation is the thing that will change the world. It's the thing that enables us to have better community and better lives. So seeing something like AI applied to gun safety directly correlates to this. There is a business case to be made for innovation, of course, but I just see this direct line. I put a lot of time into clean tech over the past few years, and we see how we can impact communities. We can impact disenfranchised groups of people. We can decarbonize a supply chain. There's lots of things that we can do. But oddly enough, most of the time, I would say more than 90% of the time, these really innovative, odd ideas that change the industries, they come from outliers. They come from people that are outside that industry who just, what you said, they think, why not? Why can't I do that?
Mhm.
Have you experienced that? I'm sure with previous projects, have you experienced that with the medical industry? It's just you're coming in hot. You're coming in from a totally different perspective. What does that feel like?
Yeah, in the medical industry, because of that huge barrier to entry, it's I think scary to be innovative for developers because there's so much documentation you've got to do. There's so much testing you've got to do. You almost kind of only want to take incremental steps so that it minimizes the work that you have to do to get it approved. So coming in naively as a developer that's never worked in the medical community, I was like, oh man, I can disrupt this thing. Can you imagine the smarts I can put in this box? Once we started the project, that's what we did. And we thought, okay, how do we close the loop on the feedback circuit here? How do we add some little smarter control system there? And we just built it. And we built what we thought it needed to do without understanding the consequences of putting all that smarts in there and how much time it was going to take to pass it off. But the result is we built something that's truly innovative, that's not out in the market, that's going to enable a lot of new surgical techniques that they can't do. As we work with physicians in the operating rooms and we're telling them, they're telling us what they need and what they're unable to do right now and how they're doing certain things right now. And we're just like, what? Why? There's a better way. So yeah, we built this thing that should enable some really cool new methods in the operating room that will support life better and allow surgeries to be done more efficiently and safer. But like I said, if I had come at this after being in the industry for 30 years, I'd been like, no, don't touch that. Don't add that in there.
I've had a taste of what you're going through, and I said, you know what? I'm going to stick to the defense industry. I'm going to stick to tech because honestly, put automotive in the same category, but absolute for certain medical is scary to me. Not just from a liability perspective, but from a paperwork perspective. And I'm in the paperwork business. I thought I was in the paperwork business.
Uh-huh.
Aerospace and defense is kind of where paperwork originated. And dipping my toe through being a mentor or working with incubators and seeing what that process looks like, I shied away. And I think a lot of people do as well, to the detriment of the medical community, to the detriment of that industry.
Yeah. Can I give you another example? This is from my prior work with my former company. We were just a small startup in the defense world, three engineers trying to do something really complex and even a little bit dangerous, like shooting rocket propelled grenades out of the sky. But we just had an idea of what we thought could work and wanted to give it a try. And we showed up to this DARPA competition with our system. And the other competitors were like Northrop Grumman and Raytheon. And we're just there, the four of us, like, hi guys. We're here to play too. But I think because of the agility that we had as that small team and the stupid decisions that we made, it made us learn things quickly on our own. And we built something that actually worked. So we got more funding. And I spent 12 years innovating and reiterating on that original design, but making a package that could be taken to the field to protect soldiers from rockets that were coming straight at their car. Yeah, I think the feeling is pretty common, that this inadequacy feeling, like how could I possibly build something that's as good as what Raytheon and Northrop Grumman could build? But when it comes down to it, we're all on a small team. Somewhere there's an engineer making a decision on what sensor to select. And I think it comes down to motivation and being willing to try and fail and pick up the pieces when you fail.
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, the organization and mass and access that the primes give, or even the mid-sized companies give, allows you to get to market, allows battleship's not going to happen with us as startups. It's just, we're not going to be out there. We can't do it. But when you get to the new frontier pieces, I'm constantly surprised at looking the solutions in the market, the needs in the market. I find something that teenagers are making at a makerspace, open source, that does the same thing as a 20, 30, $40,000 system. And I do a little bit in the EW space and in edge compute space. I see the systems that people build. And to be honest, they're awesome, right? They're great. That's what I've designed and made my whole life, is rugged systems. And what they're able to accomplish is incredible. So I don't want to take that away from these companies that are really putting things in the right people's hands. But at the end of the day, I look at it and think, you know, you can kind of just do that with a board that costs $200, that you can get the schematics for free, or you can just buy it from them. It's all open source. Like, you don't need to build that from scratch. You don't need to develop that. And there's somebody that's already doing it. And there's a hacking site where you can just buy that thing for $100, and we built it and it's $100,000 for that kit. And really, this intersection is becoming more and more wild every day, where I see that in the commercial world, in the tech world, we're doing things with massive compute. We're doing things with AI and machine learning, and even the pieces that we feel are normal, as soon as you move it over, it's 2, 3, 4 generations beyond what's available right now. And I've made a big push to explore this space. Is one of the reasons why we started this podcast, because I find this so fascinating, is this intersection of where the need is and where the solution already exists. But
Mhm.
when we look at, we want to change the world, it's amazing. You can see, you as a small team, you can move that lever of that giant company. They're going to look at what you're doing and think, I got to acquire Chad. I got to get his team on our team because they're doing something really cool. Even though they have all the resources in the world and all the funding in the world to do exactly what you do, but you're the one that's doing it. I find that infinitely fascinating. You have any thoughts on like why this acqui-hire or this situation continually occurs?
Acquihire, that's a good term. I'm not sure. It feels like we all get comfortable in our jobs, in our day to day, and we all tend to reach some state of complacency in our careers. And it's like that entropy just kind of takes over, and you all fall down to the state of lowest energy. And it really takes some additional energy to be put into the system in order to overcome that and get yourself to be uncomfortable, especially in the tech space, because you spend years going to school and learning and just blowing your mind up with knowledge. And you get out of there and somebody finally pays you to use a little bit of the knowledge that you gained. And you're like, hey, I'm getting a paycheck. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. I think it's really easy to fall into a mindset of, I'm good at this. I can do this. I'll just get paid to keep doing this. Why would anybody leave that comfort? But I think that's what it takes to be disruptive, to get out of that space, get out of your box and find something new. You kind of just have to be willing to let go of your comfort space. And I don't know, I look at these startups that are really doing interesting things, and it just seems like people who are comfortable with churn. They're comfortable with learning new things and not sticking to what's known and comfortable.
This is a odd question, right? This is just a theory that I have. Do you have hobbies where you learn things that other people get paid to do? Are you learning hard things for fun?
Oh, yes. I love it. It's the best feeling when you look at something that you've never done before and you just dig in, and then the feeling that it worked. Oh my gosh, it worked feeling. That is such a high. I love it. So yeah, I love jumping into things that I'm unfamiliar with. What would be oh, the most recent one would be writing in CUDA C. C plus there's C, and we're all familiar with that, but then adapting that to run on a GPU so it runs in a parallel architecture. I'd never done it before, but we needed a plugin to work at the end of our pipeline. The deep neural network's running on the GPU. At the end, you got to pull the data out, look at it, maybe mess with it for your algorithms, then put it back in to encode the data and ship it to a server so that people can view the lights. If you could take that data and just manipulate it on the GPU, you don't have to pass it to the CPU and then back. There's a lot of efficiency to be gained. So I just took on the challenge. Okay, I don't know anything about CUDA. Why don't I just read some tutorials? And what else helped? ChatGPT. A lot of it was just like, please explain in detail what this does. And just having it be explained in simplified terms, then going to the NVIDIA documentation and reading it yourself, that was kind of helpful. And it was an efficiency boost. Maybe that goes back to what we were talking about, where this innovation comes from. And you get people just using open source and widely available tools, and it's a force multiplier. It lets you do things that you previously weren't able to do.
I think there's this push and pull of being an aggressive generalist and then being able to just jump in and say, hey, I've been dumb and then became smart in so many domains that I can just learn more about this. I can learn enough to be conversationally competent or dangerous, but I'm willing to be dumb for a couple of weeks to see where it goes. And the way that I think about it is when I meet really innovative people, they're doing things in their free time that other people wouldn't learn even if they were going to get paid by their employer. You just do it. You just say, this might be a possible thing that I'd be interested in. Let me understand this space a little bit and let me dedicate a couple of hours or a couple of weeks to exploring this space. It's just the story that I hear over and over again. Like, hey, what did you do this weekend? Oh, I learned CUDA C. Why? It's really cool. I want to use Jetson boards. I want to do this. I want to do that. Like I have an idea for a product and it might be better if I can do this. And I just wanted to explore it. That's great. There's a bunch of people in that tech space that don't know how to do that because they wouldn't spend an hour of their free time learning it, even though that's what they do for a job.
Yeah. Isn't that weird? Maybe I am weird, but I'll tell you that it feels good. It feels good to learn something new, like to take on that challenge, be like, oh, this is super intimidating. This is only for smart people. And to let yourself feel dumb for 2 weeks, like you said, to be okay with posting on a forum that you're the new guy in the room and you're asking the questions that everybody already has the answers to. And so, you're going to be embarrassed, but being okay with that. And then at the end of the 2 weeks being like, dude, I built this thing and it's so much better. And now I know how to do it and I can apply it to other things. It feels good.
I think we both share a passion for making something and making it work. And it's such a mystery at the beginning. You have to experience a lot of the opposite of that feeling. But in some way, maybe it's because I'm a masochist, but I feel like the end result is a lot more gratifying where you're like, man, I remember when this was a mess. I had no idea what was going on. And iteration 4, we really made a breakthrough. Yeah, I agree with you. It is a cool feeling to see something run and work, or in my case, hold your idea in your hand is a singular experience. It really motivates me, put myself through a lot of pressure.
Me too. And especially when it's something that you've never done before, like jumping from the machine shop to embedded computing, getting outside of your domain and just trying something that's completely foreign. I love it.
What's on your horizon for this year? What do you see happening in your world?
So we've been working with Iowa State University for the past 3 years on a system to protect roadside workers from traffic incursions.
Oh, well.
So we've done some research studies for them. We went out and explored the space and the automotive world to find out, is there anything that's available for the autonomous vehicle market right now that could be repurposed and put into this space? So we've been focusing hard on that for the past few years, and we've come to a system that looks like it could be really useful. To explain the problem space a little bit, I'm sure you've seen them, the guys in orange and yellow vests on the side of the road while you're booking along at 80 miles per hour, and they're over there standing there with a shovel behind the cones, and the cones are what protect them from your 80 mile per hour vehicle. They get hit all the time. People with their texting or being distracted or whatever in their vehicle, they come into the work zone and they smash into them. And in fact, the average number of fatalities in the US per year for traffic incursions and fatalities to pedestrians, not just like smashing vehicles to vehicles, but cars coming in and hitting people, is 3,000 people per year.
Oh, wow.
That's how many people are dying in the US from distracted drivers coming into work zones. So Iowa was focused on their paint striping operations, the guys who paint the lines on the highway. They're going at 5 miles per hour down the road, painting those lines. Everybody else is going highway speeds or well over highway speeds. They get hit dozens of times every year. And they have these big trucks that have attenuators on the back. You've probably seen those big scorpion tails or crumple zones. So every time one of those gets hit, it's $20,000 to replace the tail. Not to mention the person in the truck could have got killed. So it's a big problem. And they've been innovative in installing lights and a big acoustic array on the back of the truck so that the driver can push a button when he sees somebody coming at him. But that puts a lot of burden on the driver because they've got to drive the truck and they've got to stare out the rearview mirror and determine whether or not they're in danger. And you're asking somebody to decide whether or not they're in danger. That's just an inherently stressful job, right? It's a lot for them to do. So our job was to try to automate the pushing of those lights and sirens. So we built a computer vision system that mounts to the back of the truck and identifies all of the vehicles approaching and not only measures the speed and the distance, but the lane position. So we have to figure out if you're going around a curve, the trajectory of the car could be directly at you, but it doesn't mean that you're in danger. It just means they're following the lane lines and they're going to pass you. So it's challenging because you can't just use a radar that detects raw speed and you can't just find the objects that are out there on the road. You have to determine how far away they are, how fast they're going, and what lane they're in. So we built a system of 2 stereo camera pairs, one for long range and one for short range. And we can measure the speed and velocity and lane position of traffic up to 1,000 feet away, which is more than double what the standard sensor in the autonomous vehicle world can do. So if you think about that, when you're driving an autonomous vehicle forward with traffic, the closing speed between you and the other cars on the highway is actually not that fast, 5, 10, 15 miles per hour. So the reaction time, you don't need to sense that far away in order to have enough reaction time to move over or slow down or whatever. So our closing speed is 65 to 80 miles an hour. So we have to sense as far as possible away. So we couldn't do it. We tested multiple LiDAR systems. We tested radar systems and event cameras and did a whole year study on all of those systems. And we had vendors of those systems come to support their products and show us, put their best foot forward and show us what their system could do. None of them could get over 300 feet. And the interesting thing with LiDAR, which I'm a proponent of LiDAR because I used to develop them. I love LiDAR, but you can't get enough pixel density. You can't get enough measurements on the target at 300 feet away with a LiDAR that's having to point that laser.
Mhm.
You can't aim it accurately enough to get enough pixels on the target to determine what the vehicle is and also determine the lane lines with the LiDAR over 300 feet. So we're going to 1,000 feet. That's the goal.
I definitely understand that problem because for years we worked with the local toll road and the maintenance company that runs a lot of the toll roads on their sensor systems and all the coin counting machines and all that fun stuff. So you would be shocked. You would be shocked. The audience would be shocked at the stories that people tell. Because I'd always ask them, well, what's the record up to how fast people are going through the lane? Because when we switched over to Smart Pass, I thought, okay, people are going to go 35, 45 through this pass. The record is extraordinarily high of how fast people could go. It's well over 100 miles an hour.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
But the sensor system works because it's simple, it's a simple system. But the oddities that happen on the road just to the volume, you think of if there's a 0.01% probability of X occurring, it would occur every single hour because of the volume of traffic. So even extremely safe, simple systems are prone to failure. The arm coming down on a car or breaking off because a bus goes through it or almost anything that you can imagine. So the maintenance becomes a problem, but every time there's a maintenance condition, there's somebody that is going to go out on the lane and they're going to fix it, or they're going to go to that side of the road and they're going to work on that piece of infrastructure. And even with the Scorpion and their truck and lights and flares and all of that, people are on their phones, right? They're not paying attention.
I would say unless you've been on the side of the road with that traffic moving that fast, you don't understand how dangerous it is. Like when you're in your own car going 80 miles an hour, you feel safe. It's quiet and you're in control. But try standing out on the side of the road with traffic moving at 80 miles an hour past you. It's terrifying. But what's even scarier is that the guys who do it every day, they get desensitized to it and they forget how scary it is. And that's where mistakes happen. And I used to go to work zones to talk to these guys. And every time I went to 13 different states, talked to the departments of transit in those states and visited work zones. And every single time I'd go, they'd have at least one story of their brother getting killed, their coworker, or themselves in a near miss. They pull out a Polaroid that they keep in their pocket to remind them of this is the day that accident happened. And this is why I always turn around to look and see who's coming at me. It's a terrifying job. And I really respect the people who do it. And I want to try to do my best to protect them if I can. Nobody else is, it seems. We spend so much money on all these other innovative technologies and autonomous vehicles are available, but you have to have a significant income in order to afford one. And then we've got everybody else that's actually out there every day and we're paying them the minimum that the company possibly can. And what do we offer them? A hard hat and a safety vest.
Right.
So we're trying to make an improvement.
This is why I really value every time we get a chance to talk because you are always working on something interesting, but there's always a direct line to how that interesting thing is going to improve the world. I really respect that. That's amazing. It's a great space to be in, but it's a great perspective to have on building innovation versus the kind of I'm in the shower, lightning bolt idea. I'm going to ruin my life over just making a thing that I think is cool and then figuring out, is there a problem? You're always looking at problem spaces and then seeing that's available. Who do I need to make this happen? What do I need to learn to make that happen? And I really respect that.
Thank you. I appreciate that because it is not the most rewarding industry to jump into. Like safety products or things that have the potential to save lives are sometimes things that people don't want to think about, don't want to consider that they need. It's like buying insurance policies. So the gun detector, for example, it should be on every camera, but there's a stigma to it. Like, I don't want people watching me. And then there's I don't want to consider the notion that somebody might come to my kid's school with a weapon. That can't happen here. So it's very hard to sell and the sales cycle is very long and you have to go through procurement cycles with city councils and all that's involved with that. So it's not like coming up with a widget that you can go take to Shark Tank and make $1 billion off of the general public. Instead, you're building something that's hard and challenging and everything. but that also is difficult to sell. So it's a tough space to be in.
I have an emerging theory about insurance as a partner in innovation, because as you're bringing up these things, what you're really doing is de-risking. And to a full insurance company, everyone knows this, so no slight on insurance companies. If they can pay $90 to save $10 on a $100 pay, like a payout, they're going to do it. They're strongly incentivized to de-risk situations. By and large, they're left out of the innovation. We talk about inventors, we talk about VCs. Of course, I like to talk about partnerships and B2B deals and DoD stuff, but bringing insurance into the fold, someone was able to really understand the space from there. They are the biggest funder of innovation when it happens, because they're the ones cutting the checks for real. Usually it's not the consumer. Usually, if it is the business, it's at the behest of the insurance company. Nobody would have sprinkler systems if they didn't have to have them. Nobody would have product liability insurance. UL wouldn't exist. You could go down the line. If nobody was willing to say, we're not going to back you up unless you de-risk the situation or make best practice to de-risk, then a lot of those things would not move forward. But most insurance companies, they're not really thinking like it. It's just starting. And from that, like I said, it's an emerging practice, emerging theory that I have. But if someone could really push and an insurance company would really go in there and say, we want to be the most innovative insurance company to de-risk our portfolio possible, they would own a whole new market. But I think people's perspective on insurance would change too. They're such a large stakeholder in the problem.
That's a great point. Yeah. Why isn't there an insurance company that has an innovation lab? Walmart has one.
Yeah, Walmart Labs right down the street.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because we've seen a big push in corporate business. You can just type in the name of your favorite brand and type lab or innovation. They've had an innovation challenge, an incubator. They've
Mhm.
sponsored one. They've had a hackathon, or they have
Mhm.
a whole corporate division that has high autonomy, low oversight. That's just developing new things. Google, Meta, Walmart's, you can name the company. They figured this out already.
There should be. Okay. Where's Allstate? Are they listening? State Farm, you guys out there?
Yeah, State Farm Innovation Labs. It's a good opportunity. But before we go, our audience is just like us. At least that's what I'm shooting for, right? Is people out there solving problems, creating innovation, looking for that high value application, that specialized application that makes innovation worth it, makes all the effort worth it. It produces the impact. And I talk about DoD space a lot, but it's just because that's my background, right? Can you give just some words of advice as an innovator, somebody that's actually come up with an idea and brought it and been successful at bringing that to market? Can you share a closing thought, a golden nugget?
Golden nugget. I'm
Yeah,
not
for
sure that
us.
I have one. I wish I had one. If I had one, man, it'd be a lot easier to do the things that I do.
Well, I keep hearing from you a story about caring, and I keep hearing a story about being audacious, about just going after an opportunity versus just sitting and wondering and waiting. So I just wanted to try to pull out a little piece from that. Is what's that mindset piece? What's that motivator? What's the thing that makes you say, I'm in medical, I'm going to go into safety, I'm going to help push somebody forward to go after an idea that they have and actually create an impact in the world?
I don't know. I really don't. But I feel like if you can get over your fear of failure and just try, it's never a loss. Like that experience of failing and learning from your experience is never not worth your time. Like with my kids, I got 4 kids, 4 teenagers. And I remember my youngest son was trying to learn how to do a backflip, and it took him a year to learn how to do the backflip. He would always try to do the backflip, look to the side, and do a side flip instead. And he just couldn't figure out how not to do that. And I worked with him one night. He was out there trying to do this backflip. And I said, okay, see if you can just put everything out of your head. Don't be afraid. Just go for it. And I saw him one time do the backflip without turning to the side. And I said, now stop. How did that feel? What was different? Did you feel it? It was different. And he acknowledged, yeah, that was different. And I said, just do it again. No fear. Take the thought out of your mind. Just go for it. And bloop, he did the backflip. It wasn't like he got stronger in that moment. It wasn't like he gained new knowledge. He didn't go to any boot camps or try anything like clearly out of the box. He just moved his brain out of the way. And once he did it, then backflips were easy. And he loves to do twisty flips and all sorts of things now. But he just kind of had to get his brain out of the way to let his body do it because he was already capable. He already had the strength, the skills, and the knowledge. He just couldn't apply it. I don't know, Callie. Maybe that's way too philosophical,
That's
but
wildly good. You're like, I don't know. And then boom, perfect story. I love that, man. Hey, I really appreciate your time. I know that you're super busy, but thank you for coming on the Start of Defense.
yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for reaching out. Great to talk to you.